we go. Right here.
Good job.
All right, right here. A little louder than that, so they can hear you. Yeah, okay. Right here, right here, right here. Come on. Be real high now. Okay, one more time. Watch your fingers. Go. Yeah. One more. Ready? Last one right here. Got it? Hey, y'all give her a hand. All right, y'all. Ready to roll?
Yep.
5, 4, 3.
We are here, Right on Paths, Season 2. I'm your host, Jael Benjamin, but let's get to the important stuff on this path, right? Today we have a special guest, Rickey Larke. Y'all give a round of applause for him. Writer, director, and you're here in LA. I hear, though, a little birdie told me that your journey actually starts in Chicago.
Yeah.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from Chicago. Born and raised South Side. Also lived in Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is further south suburbs. But yeah, that's where I'm from.
Yeah. How did you get here to LA?
I actually went to the West Coast by going to the East Coast first.
Okay.
I played football, and I ended up at a Division III school, Bowdoin College, playing football there. I played football. I got hurt. That's when around the time I started taking film classes. Took film classes, and I made a film while I was at college. And that helped me get an internship in Santa Monica at HBO. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Internship at HBO?
Yeah.
As a film, just graduated film student?
No, actually, at the time, I was a sophomore in college. I was a political theory major. Really didn't know what I was going to plan on doing, but always growing up, I made little music videos for my friends.
Gotcha.
I made little videos and stuff like that. And when I made a film, there was an alumni, Carrie Dallas, who helped me get the internship, and I was working in miniseries and Cinemax in 2013.
So what classifies a piece of artwork as film?
Honestly, what I've learned and how I think about film is just, obviously there's pictures and it's just moving pictures. I really do call it movies because honestly it's just a string of a bunch of pictures that come together that make a film. Film can be 5 seconds long, a film could be 5 hours long, I truly think that, it's just pictures put together with sound.
Got you. Once you get that film internship, what are some things that you can do to really, show out and impress the people you're working under? What are 5 things you feel like, hey, if a film student comes and works under you, that you would be like, wow, they did this, and this,
That's a really good question. I really love that question. I feel like because some of the things that set me apart from other interns were the little things. I remember when I was an intern, everybody wanted to talk about all the films that they loved so much, right? I would find out what their favorite sports teams were, and every hour on the hour bring them new sports news,
Yeah.
The Bulls signed this person, the Clippers signed that person, and it endeared you to the people that you worked with.
Yeah.
And just big listening skills, honestly. For me, I remember when I got to Los Angeles, I remember sitting in the car with my mother the first day I got there, and she said to me, and my mother worked at Avon for 25 years, so she's a hard-working woman, and she said to me, she goes, I paid for a round-trip ticket from from Chicago to Los Angeles. I didn't pay for a refund for it. So if you get fired, if you don't finish this internship, you are still coming back on August 3rd, whether you like it or not. So I suggest that everything they ask you to do there, you listen to it and you do it exactly that way.
Yeah.
Even if you think you know a better way, do it the way they tell you first and then show them. So as an intern, the first things that they give you is coffee runs. I remember I used to take my dress shoes off, put my Nikes on, run down to Starbucks, run back. And it was kind of I just really took that to heart, but it ended up helping me meet more people at HBO. Yeah. I started getting calls oh, you're the intern that's super fast at coffee runs. Oh, can you do a coffee run for me? oh, you want to read this script and you do a coffee run for me, and that's kind of how it all happened, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say like finding out what makes people tick, making those personal connections that way, listening, showing up on time. It's a little thing, but it's a big thing. And especially when you're just trying to start out, don't give them a reason, you know? Even if you got to be 1 minute, if you're running in there 1 minute early, you still early, you know? Those little things make a big difference. Yeah. And I would say the last thing is just, I treated every single person like they were the CEO of the company. I still try to do that, you know? Yeah. Anywhere I go, I try to treat everybody like they're the president of the place I'm in. So you never know who can be helpful, you never know who can teach you, and that just helps open those doors. Yeah.
And I mean, now on your path as a writer and director, right? We see you at Tinderbox, we see you at Charlie's Cheddar, and now even, I hear a little birdie told me, Grownish. Like, what does, right. What does a day in a life look like being a writer and a director in those spaces?
Yeah, so I can talk about being on staff, being a writer on staff, especially for Grownish. Day in the life is waking up, getting to work on time, making sure you're there, making sure you're present, making sure you ate a little bit of something so your stomach isn't growling so loud that other people can't hear what we're talking about, you know? But honestly, we get there, we talk about what we may be working on that day, and we split up into rooms and we get into it. It's the hardest part though is, you know, putting your cell phone away, being present. Yeah. And we honestly just talk through a lot of the topics. I mean, the first year that I was a writer on Grownish, I tell people it was crazy. I didn't write anything at all, you know? I showed up, I gave my point of view, I thought critically. I listened twice as much as I talked, and we just kind of like, the stories, the jokes, all those things that people love would find us. Yeah. We're talking, we're sharing stuff. You know, I remember being in the Blackish room, it was like that too, where we would come in and somebody would be like, man, my son just did this, man, I want to kill him. Which son would you kill? And then we all start talking about like, oh, the person in our family we would kill, you know what I'm saying? And that rose into episode 7, you know? Wow. So honestly, I feel lucky because being a writer, a day in the life is kicking back with like super interesting and funny people, kicking around stories, ideas. And then at the end, we realize we got to put something on the board, and we write something on the board and go home, you know?
Got you. So I'm imagining in my head, you walk into, you know, your offices, and when you walk in there, you're like locked into a room with other writers and creators, because you mentioned you didn't even write your first year. Yeah. So like, what action did you do? Like, what? Yeah. Y'all was just talking. Like, is that possible?
Yeah. We talked through a lot of stuff too, and as a lower level writer, I had to earn the opportunity to actually write and bring those things to the studio and to the network. Okay. So honestly, like, yeah, we get in a room, we sit in a room, and it's, again, you put your cell phone in your office, you come and sit in the room, and you talk about whatever your boss wants to talk about. Yeah. You know, sometimes I remember getting there, sitting in the room, and my boss had she got married in 1989. She had no understanding of what like social media dating apps were like, you know? Yeah. And I sit there and for like 6 hours, I'm like, no, you swipe left if you don't like them, and you know, like you swipe right this way, you know, like just explaining things like that. It can be as minuscule as that, or there would be times too where we're reading things, we're trying to understand like, what is this story actually about? Like, what are we actually taking away from this? And you come in and you talk through things and you find it, you know? Yeah.
You mentioned a level 1 writer, or there's levels on the path.
Definitely.
Could you talk about the structure? Like, what are those levels and some of the differentiations there?
Yeah, definitely. I want to make sure too that there are writers everybody who's in the writing room, whether they're an assistant or a writer, is a writer. And I think it's important when you're in that space to treat yourself with that respect as well, you know? Mm-hmm. But the first level, I would say, is the assistant level as a writer's assistant. Okay. They are literally the people writing the show. They write the scripts for us, they write the notes for us, they write all those types of things for us. Yeah. From there, it's the script coordinator who polishes the scripts, make sure they're formatted correctly. Yeah. Then you break into the writers in the room. Starts at staff writer, goes to story editor, executive story editor, which I am now currently on season 5. Then co-producer, producer level, supervising producer, co-executive producer, executive producer, and then showrunner. So, you know, a room can be 10 people, a room can be 15 people, a room can be 6 people, just depends.
Yeah. And so I'm curious then, what are some steps that a high schooler could take, like before they get in that room and in that space.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's levels in the path.
There's 3 things, and I feel blessed. I feel honestly super blessed to have had this career path that I had, because the first thing I would say to any high schooler who wants to be a writer, just read books, like literally just read books. Like I can't tell you how many times people have been in the writer's room, like, how did you come up with that? And I was like, I read it in a book once, and like from there it takes off. So like reading anything, any type of reading you do will make you a better writer. It'll give you better vocabulary. It'll show you how to turn phrases, all those types of things. The second thing I would say to a high school student right now or a college student is, one thing that got me into the room was not necessarily always being a great writer, but having a great point of view. Gotcha. Go out and live your life. Have stories, have an interesting point of view, have things to tell people, have things to show people. It was a story that got people in the Blackish room to like me enough to ask me if I had a script. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, you just have an interesting point of view. I told a story once, my mother got married in Vegas when I was 20 years old. And I told them a story of my mom asking me, like, do you have a fake ID that you might be able to bring, and I'm like, having that point of view and me being able to turn to my mom and say, yes, I do. That's what got me into that room, so live your life, have interesting things to say, like have interesting moments and find a reason sometimes to say yes. There's been times I've had the craziest story and it almost didn't happen because I almost didn't show up to the club or I almost didn't show up to the party, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So say yes, do those things. And then the last thing is, honestly, like, if you read one script a week as a high school student, you would have read, I said this at a high school once, you would have read 500 scripts by the time I read my first script. If you read one script a week from the minute you get to your senior year until you graduate college, you would have read over 500 scripts, and you would have read over 500 scripts more than I had, Yeah. So I know people are often intimidated by how big the mountain is.
Yeah.
But the old adage is true. It's just one step at a time,
Yeah.
You want to be a writer? Get a script that you like. Read that script. You start reading that script, you get bored after page 10, put it down. Come back to it tomorrow. Read 5 more pages. You keep pushing, you'll be way ahead of even where I was when I started,
Wow. I think that is like super helpful for us. Are there any scripts or books that you find yourself reflecting back on or picking up to today that inspire and like remotivate you?
Yeah. There's a series of books that I would suggest any person who's interested in being a storyteller at all to get. It's called 20 Master Characters. I think it's 20 Master Plots and 20 Master Characterizations. Every story is based in stories that have already come before you, right? Like, there's really nothing new under the sun. And I remember dating this girl, and she gave me this book, or 45 Master Characters, sorry. And I refer to that book every time I write a script. Anytime I work on a new project, I go in that book and I say, who is this character? This character's archetype is Apollo, or he's the businessman archetype. These are his flaws. These are his things. And it's literally, every chapter is like 3 pages long. Yeah. You get in there and you're like, oh, he's a trickster. 3 pages. You run through it. There's examples in different movies. There's examples in different stories. Yeah. There are flaws, all those types of things. I refer to those things all the time. And then probably the book that's most important in my own self-development, not only as a professional but as a person, was Malcolm X's autobiography. The autobiography of Malcolm X just really instilled in me that, one, the thing that Malcolm X always says, if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Yeah. And 2, that my life is now, Your life has already started. And what you want from these things, you should start going towards today. Even if it's a small step, you can start those things today, Yeah. Malcolm had that realization when he was in prison, that his life has started already and he needs to take responsibility for that. But just reading that book really instilled a lot in me and pride in how I wanted my professional life to be, Yeah. So it was really helpful for me.
Yeah, if you're a high school student, middle school student, and you're trying to get around like professional writers, right? Like, you're not a professional writer, but you're on your way. Yeah, you're on your path.
Yeah.
How would you recommend they do that? Is it watching the credits and just like I don't know, commenting on Instagram, hey, I like your stuff. Like,
yeah, no, Instagram is a tool now that we have that we should use for positive reasons, right?
Yeah.
Instead of all the negative reasons, right? And that's definitely one way to do it. And I will say this, and I'm sure, you know, once this is out, I'm going to be regretting saying it, but any person who reaches out to me on LinkedIn, especially a person that's in school, I will give them my time, you know?
Yeah.
I will sit with them and answer any question, no question too big or small, no dumb questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And just reach out, put yourself out there, you know? LinkedIn, Instagram, these types of things, you know? And now with Zoom, you can be, your parent could be sitting there right there with you, getting this information with you in these spaces. You don't, you know, like, it's so accessible. Just put yourself out there. And I would say, too, if you're in middle school and you're in high school, find the people that tell the best stories at lunch and figure out why their stories are good. When they pause, when they say this, when they say that, when they say, you know what I'm saying, you know? When they stop to say those things, like, find those people and take in those little everyday lessons that you can do. And, you know, I know a lot of people always talk about networking up.
Yeah.
I want to echo as well. Networking across will help you so much.
Yeah.
I've learned just as much from my bosses that have been professional writers and EPs on shows. And I've learned just as much from my friends sitting across at my kitchen table having, you know what I'm saying, walk to the taco stand and talk to, you know, I have friends like my friend Michael, my friend Charles. We've sat and talked about things, and those things have pushed my career forward just as much as networking with any other writer, you know?
Yeah.
So find good storytellers and just take your mental notes from there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and you're also a director as well.
Yeah.
So switching hats a little bit, how do you know, like, this is some content that has been written, like, this is a script that I wanna, this is good?
Well, you know, it's funny, like, as a baby director, I've only ever gotten the opportunities to really direct my own writing, so I had to feel like it was good to even get going, you know? Like, I had to feel like it was fire. But honestly, though, like, it's the ones that you get lost that you're reading it, and you know, it's the ones that make you say, like, speak out loud, you know? There's sometimes I read a script and I'm like, what? No. When I start saying stuff like that out loud, I know it's good. You know, I know it's going to resonate with someone. Yeah. I know when I get to the last page and I'm like, it can't end like that. That's a good script, you know?
Yeah.
Things like that's a great script. So just, you'll know when it'll find you. Good stories find people, you know?
Yeah. What's the journey for a script from, like, writing it to getting it on television?
So it totally depends. Like, if we're talking about a script, like if it's the pilot or a new show or anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, I want to even start at the conception. I know for me, I've been thinking about some scripts that I've written for, or may write for, like, years. Just sitting in my brain, adding a little piece here, adding a little piece there. When I finally get ready to do it, when I finally get ready to have it, it literally starts with one page. I just write out the whole, if it's a movie or even if it's a TV show, I'm like, what's the whole story just in one page? And then from 1 page to 3 pages. And then from 3 pages to 8 pages. And then it's an outline.
Yep.
And then, this is the hardest part. When you got an outline and you feel really good about the outline, you just plug and chug. I sit there and I just write. The outline says he walked into the room. Marcus walked into the room. The outline says he sits down. Even when I'm, like, in there and I'm like, this don't make no sense. You just keep plugging and chugging to finish it, you know?
Yeah.
Then you can go back and revise, you know?
Yeah.
And from there, you have a script, you have a pilot. I would say, like, that's the pilot if you're writing a script like that. But as far as, like, when we're working on Grownish and stuff, it literally starts with some writer coming in and being like, I have an idea about something. And again, they bring it up and someone's like, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard. And someone's like, that's the worst idea I've ever heard, you know? We start arguing, we get to arguing, you know? And then my boss is like, okay. So you're saying it's this, and we finally come up with a thesis statement.
Okay.
We do the exact same thing. From 1 page to 3 pages, from 3 pages to an 8-page outline. We take it to the network in the studio. They approve it. We then send that writer off with a structure, an outline structure. They have 4 or 5 days to complete the script. They write 30 pages in 4 or 5 days. Yes, it's intense sometimes, but then they bring it back. They bring it back to the group. We read it. We take notes.
Yeah.
We polish it. We work on it. We work on it literally the Friday before we start shooting on Monday. And then you show up and everybody's got the script and you hit action. You know, you say action, you hit the camera and you go, you know?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like a very quick timeline. Like
Yeah.
you have to be quick in typing, like, or recording.
You got to plug and chug. You got to trust.
Plug and chug.
You got to trust that you have it there already. You know.
Yeah.
I remember my first episode was for this show called Keenan on NBC. I got 4 days, Thursday to Tuesday, to write the script.
Yeah.
One of my good friends was having a party on Saturday, so I'm already sweating like, okay, I got 3.5 days. How I'm gonna do this, you know? And literally, like, any time I could find, I was doing it. There was one moment where all my friends were sitting on my couch or watching Netflix doing it, and I'm sitting in the corner on my laptop, you know, trying to put a joke in and little things like that. It's difficult, but it's nice when you get that check for the episode, and then you're like, yeah, it was worth it. It was totally worth it.
I'd do it again.
Yeah, I would gladly do it again. I'm begging you to do it again.
Let me know. Well, I see the audience letting me know that it's time to open up for some questions. I think we had a question. Was it over here? It's right here in the front. Yep, we got a question in the front.
Here we go.
My question would be, what has been your most fulfilling script that has come out, or a script that you hold on to closely that you would like to see come out, as far as a vision and your dream? Not too personal, but you know, the idea of it.
Yeah, I'd probably say the script that was produced that I hold the dearest was the Keenan script, my first episode that I ever wrote. And it's because it was interesting. It was like, the concept of the episode was this woman has had like 6 ex-fiancés, and she's always afraid to commit, and Keenan's trying to help her find a way to commit. But what was super cool was we had a B story where 2 of the characters go to a bar, and they're both flirting with the bartender, and they can't figure out which one the bartender likes. But I remember I try to hide nuggets for all my family and friends, and I named the bartender my sister's name, and my sister's name is Rochelle, but it's spelled with an O. And like just going onto set and seeing my sister's name on the thing and like seeing that on the stuff, I was like, man, like, you know, like I hope she catch that. You know what I'm saying? I hope she, and then 6 months later when they showed the episode, I woke up to a text from my sister after she watched it, and she just was like, I really felt seen. You know, I'd be hustling, trying to do my thing, and like that was really cool, and that was just super fulfilling. You know, like everything I do is for my family and my friends. So for them to have gotten something out of it meant a lot to me.
Favorite thing to do when you was at college?
My favorite thing to do when I was at college, okay. Okay, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a really good question. My favorite thing to do when I was at college, honestly, though, I went to a small college in rural Maine. There wasn't a lot of us there. There wasn't a lot of black men there. So my favorite thing to do was always those random dinners where it would be all the black people or all the like minority people still in the dining hall eating, and they tell us we got to get out, and we like, yeah, we gonna get out, and 30 minutes later they come back and they like, well, at least give us your dishes if y'all not gonna get out, you know, like that was always my favorite thing to do. I love to connect with people, and that sense of community is what got me through graduation. So yeah.
Real quick, definitely appreciate your time. In terms of the writing that you do, a lot of times you're able to create a full entire world. Do you feel a responsibility within your jokes or within your writing to try to guide people towards what you think is right?
I think I have a responsibility as a writer to write the truth. And I will never be a writer who thinks that they have the right answer. But I try to pose the question. And I never try to tell my audience what they should think. I want to actually know what they think. So I got to pose questions, and I post scenarios that I hope will get other people talking. My favorite thing to do, I remember being in college and sitting in the back of a theater, and I love when people say, I hated it. You know what I'm saying? Because now I want to know why you hated it, you know? That's my favorite thing to do, is just to get inside people's heads that way. Yeah. So for me, like, I have no responsibility to say what I think is right. It's only to show both sides, show triple sides, confuse it the most, you know? And then what y'all think? Because ultimately, like, my responsibility is to my community in that sense, and I don't know what's best for my community. We decide together, and then we take it out, you know?
What's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport is basketball, even though I'm only 5'9". I love it. I love it. Or maybe boxing. I do like boxing too.
Last question. What is your favorite thing to do when you're playing with your friends in college?
My favorite thing to do with my friends. My friend Charles is here. I maybe have to ask Charles to answer, but honestly, my favorite thing to do is to sit around with my friends around my kitchen table, talk, play cards, hang out with them. We would sit around my friend Michael's table all the time and just talk for hours. And honestly, that's when I look back on my life, that'll definitely be one of the things that I cherish.
Yeah. That was beautiful.
What is the best advice? What is some of the best advice you've gotten as a writer, whether it be in college or now? What is something that you can tell a writer starting out?
Yeah, I'll say this advice I got changed the whole way that I even made stuff.
Yeah.
I'll say every story is not for everyone. And I say that because when I first started out, I was writing scripts and sending it to everybody, and everyone had notes, and I would try to take everybody's notes in. And I had to realize I should only send it to the people that might actually watch this show, or might actually watch this, or might actually pay money to see this movie. So honestly, that would be my advice, is like, send your writing to people who would actually like that, you know? Send your stuff to people you think actually would get it, you know? And know that not everybody is your audience, so not everybody's opinion you need to take into account when you're working on it. And the second thing I would say is just don't be so protective of your art, you know? As all the parents here know, eventually, even if you have a child, you raise that child, you got to send that child to school, or you're doing it a disservice, you know? So you got to send your stuff out into the world so that it can learn to tie its own shoes and it can learn to do things, you know? So send it out. Don't be too precious with it. And move on after that. So.
Thank you.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Can writers send out outlines? Like, does it have to be a complete script? Can you send out a concept? Like, is that acceptable?
I often send out concepts. I'll send out a log line, which is just one sentence, and be like, is this interesting, you know?
Yeah.
But definitely send your outlines out, because
Okay.
it will save you so much time writing. You're planning on writing a 60-page script, that might take you months. And if you send an outline out and your friend says, oh, dude, like, this doesn't make sense because there's no gravity in space.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, you just saved me 6 months of writing this thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, as a person who also gets sent a lot of stuff, if you send me a 13-page outline and you send me a 60-page script, I'm happy to read the 13-page outline, you know? I'm so happy to read that thing and help you get there so you don't waste your time.
Yeah.
So definitely send your outlines out, you know? And send them to people you think would like the show, you know?
Yeah. Do your friends be like, can you write me in the script, man? Like, I think this is perfect for me. It just write me right there.
No, they never do. Honestly, oftentimes they'd be like, is this person me? Is this about me? And I'm like, oh, yes.
How important is it for a person that's aspiring to be a creative or a writer or a director in any capacity to create their own content? How do you suggest they do it to get a buzz for themselves, to get in a position to write on a scripted TV series for a credible network?
Yeah, I think it's vital to create your own content. The way that I got there was by writing my own scripts, my own ideas, by shooting my own shorts. I worked at HBO for 4.5 years, and people would always say when we worked there, my show. And I never thought of any of the shows as my own show. I was working on my show when I went home at 9 o'clock at night, you know? It is vital to getting to where you want to work on your own things. And I would say, if you want to work on a scripted show, if you have a dream of doing that, start thinking about a short that you would make. A short film is a great way to do it, only because I worked for showrunners. Showrunners have so little time. They barely have time for their own families, you know? And if I send them a 30-page script, they may read it, they may not read it. But if I send them a 5 to 10 minute short film, they'll watch it. And if they laugh once or twice, they'll email me back, you know? And they'll tell me what works and they'll tell me what doesn't work. But the amount of responses I got when I made a short film boosted me. And half of those, when people would give me notes, I would say, thank you very much. I would take the notes. But also, too, I would say, do you know anybody you think might like this short film? Oh, yeah. Let me send it to this executive. Let me send it to my homie over here and over there. And that's how I got into the room. I had a friend, Christian, asked to see my short film. I sent it to him. He said, this is great. Can I send it to a producer? Sent it to the producer. A week later, the guy was calling me, asking me if I wanted to interview for a BET Plus show. I interviewed for the show. I got the job, right? And when I told my boss I would be leaving Blackish to go do that, he said, wait a second, let's call the Grownish people and see if they want you. That's how I got onto Grownish.
Oh, wow.
So it's vital.
Well, I think on that note, as you journey down your path, you better put yourself in position.
Yes.
And so please make sure that you do the same with this episode, right? You send it to a friend and send it to another friend, because I'm sure there's an aspiring writer that will benefit from this moment that we just had with Rickey Larke, y'all. Give it up, y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Aphrodite, then discuss, her rock, her messy colors. Nah, 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 nah. Never become Christmas. I love Aphrodite, then discuss, her rock, her messy colors. Nah, 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 never become Christmas. I love it when you couscous. Love it when you couscous. Love it when you couscous. Couscous. Love it, 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 love it. I love it when you cook it. Love it, 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 love it. I love it.